The day my biological parents found me, I had already given birth to a child. The fake daughter replaced me all these years, laughed while covering her mouth with a handkerchief. Where did this little brat come from? Why did sister bring him back to the Marquis' residence? My nominal fiancé directly refused the marriage in front of the Empress, speaking righteously. I absolutely cannot marry such an impure woman. Relying on being the Emperor's only son, he insisted on forcing my mother to cancel the engagement. I silently agreed. Well, it saves me the trouble. After all, the child I brought back to the residence is his biological brother. Ding! Wisnovel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. In the Phoenix Palace, the Empress sat quietly on the Phoenix throne, looking somewhat troubled. Below her, a consort in a goose-yellow palace dress was crying fiercely. Your Highness must stand up for the second prince. His Majesty only has this one son. If he marries a woman who has had a child as his principal wife, wouldn't it be a laughingstock? As she spoke, she glanced at my mother, both angry and resentful. The Marquis' wife too, how could she not even figure out who her own daughter is? Just as the second prince is about to marry, she comes to say the one in the residence is fake. If it was a mistake, just let it be. Why bring it out in the open? Just pinch your nose and accept it. Why insist on letting the newcomer recognize her ancestors and implicate the second prince, causing a joke? The second prince, such a precious person, is being sullied by the filthy affairs of your residence. Mother sighed deeply and bowed to the Empress. Your Highness might not know, Shirshir is my daughter whom I carried for 10 months. But she was harmed by villains and drifted outside for over 10 years. I really cannot bear to see her marriage snatched away, letting the daughter of that lowly maid take advantage. As soon as she finished speaking, Consort Ling suddenly stood up. Her eyes faintly filled with tears, anger mixed with grievance. What do you mean by this? Are you insinuating and mocking me? Mother was slightly stunned, showing some embarrassment. I then remembered that Mother had mentioned this Consort Ling was originally a foot-washing maid beside the Empress Dowager. Due to an accident, she gained favor by the Emperor, thinking she would be given a low position and be dismissed. But unexpectedly she became pregnant and gave birth to the only prince. Thus, she rose in status and was conferred as a consort. The current emperor is not indulgent, and his relationship with the Empress is not harmonious, making her unique in the harem. Over the years, she often relied on the title of the second prince's birth mother, considering herself the future Empress Dowager, and hated others mentioning her past identity. Enough! The Empress interrupted her lightly. I am aware of this matter, but this marriage was specifically arranged by the late Empress Dowager. Now that she has passed away, I still need to ask the Emperor's opinion. Consort Ling listened and glared at me hatefully. Anyway, such shameless and promiscuous girls, my son will absolutely not want. With that, she flung her sleeves and left angrily. In the carriage on the way back, my mother was half leaning against her head, looking very tired. I gently massaged the acupuncture points on her shoulders. After a long time, she sighed softly. I don't know if bringing you into the palace today was right or wrong. I originally thought I was an abandoned orphan by my parents. Later, I found out that I was secretly swapped without my mother's knowledge. And the one who replaced me was my father's illegitimate daughter outside. She took my identity as the eldest daughter of the Marquis family, my affection, and even my royal fiancé. After a while, I softly spoke. Mother should know that the royal family would never agree to the second prince marrying me. Why go through this? She looked up and smiled gently. If we don't enter the palace, how can we let the outside world know your true identity? Do you know, today's trip to the palace was done without your father and grandmother's knowledge. They wanted to keep this matter hidden, publicly claiming you as a cousin. Letting that girl completely replace you, how could I agree? She looked at me, her eyes suppressed with a faint hatred. I want to make a big fuss, let them dream on. After returning to the mansion, my mother first accompanied me to see Jiyu. He was still young, lying on the couch sleeping soundly. Just as we settled in, a servant came to report that the old lady was requesting our presence. Mother snorted coldly, withdrawing her hand from Jiyu's face. That was quick. I'll go meet them. She got up and looked at me, with some worry on her face. I don't have much to worry about, but you. If I had known earlier, I would have made good relations with Consort Ling. But instead, I offended her. If she becomes the Empress Dowager, I'm afraid. During this time back, I roughly understood that when my mother was young, she was very favored by the Empress Dowager. And her character was noble, naturally looking down on Consort Ling's ways. I slightly frowned. Why does mother think Consort Ling will definitely become the Empress Dowager? She rubbed her temples, lazily shaking her head. It's not what I think, it's what everyone thinks. The emperor doesn't have many heirs, and over the years, only the second prince has grown up safely. Who else could it be? He can't abandon his own son to adopt another, right? I lowered my eyes, thoughtfully speaking. What if the emperor has more than one son? Mother immediately laughed. That would be wonderful. If the emperor has another son, as long as that prince's mother's status is decent. Those old ministers in the Golden Throne Hall wouldn't just stick to the second prince. But how could that be? The emperor hardly even enters the harem now, let alone having pregnant concubines. She laughed silently, patting my arm. I'll go first, take good care of Jiyu. I looked at the peaceful sleeping face on the small couch, reached out and took out the black dragon jade from his clothes. I carefully examined it for a long time before putting it back. I slightly closed my eyes and took a deep breath. This piece of jade was given to me by my husband on our wedding night. He once joked that he had nothing else, didn't even know who he was. But only this jade to give me, to pass on to our children in the future. Such a jade. I also saw a piece on the second prince today. It turns out, he didn't lie to me on the day we parted, he really is the emperor. 3 years ago, I lost myself trying to save a stranger. He lost his memory, he said he wanted to take responsibility for me. No family, no blessings, we simply bowed to heaven and earth. But after just half a year, he said he regained his memory, I couldn't be his legitimate wife. He also said he had a wife and child, asked if I could be his concubine. I screamed, asking him why. He was silent for a long time, then replied, I am the emperor. I laughed coldly, threw my luggage at him, not knowing if I believed him or not. I'd rather be a poor man's wife than a rich man's concubine. Get lost. He left. Before leaving, he asked me to wait for him. He would send someone to pick me up after handling everything. How could I agree? The day after he left, I set fire to the place and turned away. It was then that I discovered I was pregnant. 3 years later, I was found by my mother's people, becoming the true daughter of the Marquis family. The next morning, I learned that there had been quite a commotion in the front yard the day before. Grandmother was so angry that she fell ill. And father, in his fury, handed over the household management to concubine Chun. Mother locked herself in her courtyard and refused to come out. The maid tearfully recounted the events of the previous day. It turned out that father and grandmother were displeased with mother for making decisions on her own. Their original intention was for the fake young lady to marry using my identity. But now that things had blown up. Consort Ling not only didn't want me, but even the fake young lady was disdainful. After all, to father, they were both his blood, what difference did it make? He might have even been aware of the child swapping incident back then. Only the second prince and the fake young lady had been childhood sweethearts. Upon hearing that the marriage plans had changed, he had already gone to the palace to plead with his majesty. After noon, someone came looking for me, saying that the second prince had arrived and wanted me to go to the main courtyard. I frowned slightly and hurried over. By the time I arrived, mother was already there. Her face was pale, and her eyes were bloodshot, as if she hadn't slept well. I comfortingly patted her arm and stood by her side. The second prince glanced at me and snorted coldly. Lon Lon, your village sister really knows how to cause trouble. My mother cried half the night yesterday, and if it weren't for father favoring me, our marriage might have been called off. She wants to marry into the royal family as the principal wife with a child in tow, without considering if she has the face for it. Wu Lon Lon, the illegitimate daughter occupying my identity, the fake young lady. She pursed her lips and smiled, her eyes sparkling. His Majesty has always favored you, but isn't the position of concubine a bit of a grievance for sister? A pang hit my heart, and I quickly looked at mother. She gave a bitter smile and shook her head. What grievance? Father said that as long as she sends the child away to be raised, giving her the position of concubine is already elevating her. After all, I'm father's only son, and she's just a village girl from the countryside. Could father really be willing to wrong me for her? I then realized that not only had the emperor agreed to the marriage between the second prince and Wu Lanlan, but he had also given Wu Lanlan the title of county princess. As for me, I was to send the child away and become a concubine to the second prince, which didn't violate the promise to the Empress Dowager. After all, the second prince was his biological son. What a clever plan. A faint pain welled up in my heart, knowing he didn't know my identity, yet unable to suppress the feeling of injustice. After the second prince left, I went to mother's room. She looked weary and spoke as soon as I entered. Sure, it's my fault for letting you down. She leaned against the soft couch, her eyes half closed, and gave a bitter smile. His Majesty is probably planning to establish the crown prince soon, which is why he's in a hurry to pave the way for the second prince. He knows your father doesn't like you, and since the second prince likes Lanlan, so His Majesty gave her the title of county princess, to elevate her. Plans can't keep up with changes. According to mother's plan, if things got big enough, Consort Ling would certainly not want her son to marry either of me and the fake lady. This way, it would strike at the Marquis' residence and also correct my identity, allowing me and Jiyu to be openly raised by her. No matter how much was calculated, no one expected His Majesty to intervene, using the Marquis' daughter's marriage to elevate the second prince. It's heard that the 4 concubine positions have been filled, all from noble families, except for me, who benefited from the favor of the Empress Dowager. These marriages are likely to be finalized after the palace banquet. Since that day, the residence has been much livelier. Grandmother's illness has improved, father is in high spirits, and even the servants walk with a spring in their step. This time, the one who fell ill was mother. When Wu Lanlan came to attend to the illness, she smiled with a hint of meaning. Mother, why bother? All those schemes, in the end, it's still me who benefits. Have you forgotten? The one in charge now is His Majesty, not the Empress Dowager. Mother was furious, coughing and pointing at her to get out while leaning on the bed. She raised an eyebrow and shifted her smiling gaze to me. Why is mother so angry? Today I serve mother, and in the future, sister will serve me. Isn't mother afraid that such humiliation will bring retribution upon sister? TSK, concubine of the prince sounds nice, but in the end, it's just a concubine. Fortunately, I'm not one to be intolerant, so I won't torment sister. Poof. A mouthful of fresh blood spewed from mother's mouth, her face as pale as paper. I raised my hand and threw a teacup at her, angrily shouting, "Get out." Water splashed, soaking her skirt. She pursed her lips in frustration but ultimately said nothing more. After returning to my room, I remained silent for a long time. Since I returned to the manor, my mother has been the only one who treats me well. Seeing her like that, I felt uneasy in my heart. First it was me, then my mother, and next, it would be Jiyu. Closing my eyes, I tightly gripped the black dragon jade in my hand. I absolutely cannot become a concubine. Marrying the father first and then the son, it makes no sense. It seems I need to plan carefully. Before I could figure it out, news came from the manor that the palace was hosting a banquet to celebrate Consort Ling's birthday. Consort Ling, due to her low status, had never had a grand birthday banquet, and now it was the first time. It seems, as my mother said, the emperor wants to establish a crown prince, thus elevating those around him. Since the second prince sent the message, Wu Lanlan has been trying to please Consort Ling. And now with the grand birthday banquet, she is determined to stand out. Moreover, the second prince hinted that the emperor might grant them marriage on this day. After more than 10 days, the palace banquet arrived as scheduled. My mother gathered her spirits and took me and Wu Lanlan to the banquet. Afraid of affecting her reputation, Wu Lanlan behaved much more quietly along the way and dared not cause trouble. There, I saw Pei Wenhua. It was the first time I saw him in 3 years. He had changed a lot, sitting on the dragon throne in a robe embroidered with golden dragons. His face handsome, his demeanor calm, appearing steady and dignified, inviolable. It seemed that the man who once treated me like a treasure, coaxing me softly and awkwardly, no longer existed. My mother sat beside me, gently pulling my hand, whispering, "Be careful, do not look directly at His Majesty. I heard His Majesty was injured during a private visit 3 years ago. And he has changed a lot since returning, his temperament is not what it used to be. Do not act improperly and anger him." I nodded, lowered my gaze, and hid myself in the corner. After several rounds of drinks, Consort Ling became increasingly triumphant, pestering the emperor to issue an edict. Today was her main event, and the emperor gave her face. With a wave of his hand, a eunuch came forward with the imperial edict. By the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees, the daughter of Marquis Wu, County Princess Lan Wu Lan Lan, is gentle and virtuous, and is granted marriage to second Prince Pei Xian as the principal wife. The eldest daughter Wu Shishir is outstanding in appearance and character, granted as a concubine to second prince. The wedding date to be chosen. As the words fell, the Empress sighed lightly. "Your Majesty, should we give Shishir a title? After all, she is the child set by the Empress Dowager." From my angle, the emperor frowned slightly, his face showing some impatience. "Just a concubine, what title does she need? I haven't even considered her bearing a child, being a concubine is already elevating her. This matter should not be discussed further, the second prince is of noble lineage, what woman could he not have? Even being a concubine should be met with gratitude." My body swayed slightly, my heart tightened. He actually said that about me. Something warm lingered in my eyes, and I almost couldn't control myself from shedding tears. Even my mother's call beside me was almost unheard. "What's wrong, Shishir? You should give thanks." Only then did I notice that Wu Lan Lan was already kneeling in the center of the hall, beginning to give thanks. Suppressing the tears in my eyes, I lowered my head and slowly walked to her side to kneel down. Suddenly, a strong malicious intent for revenge surged in my heart. I knelt down and bowed my head, emphasizing each word with a stronger voice. "Your servant's daughter, thanks for the gracious favor." Silence all around. With a bang, the sound of a teacup shattering. Tea flowed down the table, drip by drip. I vaguely felt a scorching gaze burning on me, and then, a bright yellow figure appeared in front of me. He was tense all over, his voice trembling. "You, lift your head." The atmosphere froze in an eerie silence, with everyone's gaze fixed on me. I supported myself with my palm, slowly raised my head, and straightened my posture. Pei Wenhua's face turned pale inch by inch with my movements, even his lips trembled. I stared at him indifferently, without saying a word. Soon, he slightly closed his eyes, and when he opened them again, they were clear. He placed one hand behind his back, glanced around, and took in everyone's expressions before looking at my father. "Your daughter resembles someone I once knew." He reasonably explained his earlier loss of composure. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. For the rest of the banquet, he didn't glance at me even once, only engaging in distracted conversations with others. After half a cup of tea, he got up to leave. Consort Ling saw he was about to go and quickly clung to him, hugging his arm and acting coy. Pei Wenhua paused, instinctively glanced at my position, freed himself from Consort Ling's hand, and comforted her. "Don't be silly, I have important matters to attend to, I'll accompany you another day." The concubines in the back row also stood up, respectfully sending him off. I withdrew my gaze, drank wine with my sleeve covering the cup. I secretly sneered in my heart. Isn't it true that he has a wife and children, and even a bunch of concubines? After finishing a cup, a palace maid came to refill my wine and accidentally wet my skirt. Seeing her calm demeanor, I understood. It was Pei Wenhua who wanted to see me. Sure enough, she led me to a secluded palace. Pei Wenhua stood at the window, dressed in casual clothes, looking somewhat like he did in the past. He stared at me intently, his dark eyes swirling with emotions, his voice hoarse. "Why did you leave without saying goodbye? Why didn't you wait for me? You came to the capital, why didn't you come to find me?" Faced with 3 consecutive questions, I couldn't answer, so I simply lowered my head and remained silent. He anxiously stepped forward, grasping my shoulders. Sure, answer me." I slowly pushed his hand away, a malicious smile forming at the corner of my mouth. "Your Majesty, please behave yourself. I have just been granted the status of a concubine to the second prince, we are of different ranks." He was slightly stunned, his face instantly turned livid, and he paced angrily. Are you blaming me? You know well that I didn't know it was you. If I had known, how could I? I raised my head, letting out a cold laugh. Naturally, your majesty was unaware, busy paving the way for your own son. Granting a concubine is no big deal, right? A woman who lost her chastity and has a child, even being a concubine is a favor to her. That was someone else. He suddenly turned around, his eyes bloodshot. How can you be the same? At the moment our eyes met, he seemed to realize something, and paused slightly. That child is mine? During half a year in the countryside, I had never seen him with such varied expressions. At this moment, his face carried a hint of hope, looking at me cautiously. After a while, I nodded. He instantly became joyful and hugged me tightly. Sure, don't worry, I will find a way to bring you and the child back. Don't concern yourself with the matter of the concubine, I will handle it. I raised my head, looking at this face that was both unfamiliar and familiar. In his 30s, time hadn't left many marks on his face. He was handsome, and he possessed the wealth of the world. I had heard of his past achievements, ascending the throne at a young age, a born emperor. From the civil and military officials to the common people, all praised him. He had the pride of an emperor, the ability to manage a harem of 3,000. Such a person, I shouldn't have quarreled with him. I lowered my eyes, choosing not to answer. After returning to the manor, everyone was exhausted and went back to their rooms to rest. The next morning, we all tacitly gathered in grandmother's room to pay our respects. Wu Lanlan was leaning in grandmother's arms, acting spoiled, while grandmother stroked her long hair and lightly reprimanded mother. The emperor wants to establish the crown prince, and this matter is already out in the open. Lanlan will be the legitimate crown princess in the future, so you mustn't favor that outsider anymore. If you can't distinguish between priorities, the madam of the Wu family will truly have to be replaced. Saying this, she glanced at me. And that wild child brought by Shirshir, the palace has already sent people over. Later, you and your son should say your goodbyes, and send the child away, never to return. Lest you displease the emperor and his highness. My mother's originally calm expression suddenly shattered. No. This child, even if sent away, should be by my hand. How can it be handled so casually? Grandmother heavily tapped her cane, angrily rebuking. Nonsense, the palace sent people personally, what right do you have to speak? Mother was about to speak, but I gently shook her sleeve, silently shaking my head. We said to wait for 2 days, but didn't expect Pei Wenhua to act so quickly. In Jiyu's room, the palace servants were already waiting. The one who came was Eunuch Shu, a favored person by the emperor's side. Seeing me, his face broke into a smile full of wrinkles, humbly bowing. Miss, rest assured, His Majesty has instructed. This servant would never dare to mistreat the young master. Jiyu was a clever child, neither crying nor fussing. He just looked at me longingly, as Eunuch Shu carried him onto the carriage. I lowered my head, my eyes reddening. This child had never been away from me before. Eunuch Shu comforted, Miss, don't worry, the fate of you and the young master is still ahead. A rush of footsteps sounded. It was my mother, with Wu Lanlan and the others behind her. My mother's face was pale, staggering as she tried to rush to the carriage. Why so soon? Where is Jiyu? I stopped her, crying softly on her shoulder, taken away. My fingers inadvertently squeezed her palm. She froze, looking at Eunuch Shu who nodded at her, then at me, deep in thought. At this moment, Wu Lanlan also arrived, her face flushed, as if she had hurried. Looking at Eunuch Shu with delight in her eyes. The servants said people from the palace came, but I didn't expect it to be Eunuch Shu, truly neglectful of us. Would you care for a cup of tea before leaving? Eunuch Shu shook his head with a smile, still looking humble. Miss is too kind, I have other matters to attend to, so I won't disturb you. Then we won't hold you up. Thank you for personally coming. His Majesty truly cares for the second prince, even handling such small matters personally. Eunuch Shu squinted slightly but said nothing with a smile. After they left, she glanced at me disdainfully, quite pleased with herself. Now you see how much the emperor values the second prince? And still dreaming of keeping that bastard, you should see if the emperor agrees. I didn't respond to her, taking my mother back to my room. With no one around, my mother sat directly opposite me, speaking seriously. Sure, be honest with me, whose child is GU? I sighed lightly, it's the Emperor's. What? She stood up abruptly, staring at me intently. It's the Emperor's? So yesterday at Consort Ling's banquet, the Emperor lost his composure publicly because he recognized you, right? I nodded. She sat back down, her fingers gripping the armrest, turning pale, showing the owner's inner turmoil and complexity. No wonder. I didn't expect this, it turned out to be this. Then she looked up at me again. Did His Majesty say when to bring you back to the palace? I paused for a moment, then asked back, Mother, do you think I should enter the palace? She frowned, somewhat surprised. Of course you should enter the palace, you are the birth mother of a prince, where else could you go if not the palace? I fell silent, not responding. It seemed everyone thought I should obediently enter the palace. That place was already my best way out. But no one knew, I originally wanted to find an ordinary person to be a proper wife, to live peacefully for a lifetime. But now, I had no choice. The two young ladies of the Marquis residence are about to get married. And the house is gradually becoming lively. As the wedding preparations are underway, a piece of shocking news suddenly comes from the palace, catching everyone in the capital off guard. In grandmother's room, Wu Lanlan is so shocked that she almost falls off her chair. What did you say? The Emperor has a prince among the common people? How is that possible? My father paces irritably. It's absolutely true. During today's morning court, he personally brought him in front of all the civil and military officials, even did a blood test for verification. Moreover, the child resembles the Emperor greatly. Grandmother's face turns pale. The Emperor values this child so much. What does this mean for the second prince then? My father pauses, sighing lightly, it's hard to say. I only know that the second prince is no longer the Emperor's only choice. Now, we can only hope that the child's mother is of low birth. Wu Lanlan's eyes light up, stepping forward. Who is the child's mother, and where is she? Apparently, my father furrows his brows, his tone somewhat strange. She's having a spat with the Emperor, refusing to return from the Taoist temple. A Taoist temple? I feel a slight movement in my brow, realizing that Pei Wenhua has such plans. He wants to send me to the Taoist temple, to shed the title of second prince's concubine before entering the palace again. Mother and I exchange a glance, understanding each other. In the following days, news occasionally comes from the palace. It is said that the Emperor is extremely fond of the little prince, taking him along for meals and sleep, causing Consort Ling to vent her anger by smashing countless vases in her palace. Perhaps with nowhere to vent, Consort Ling sends palace staff to bring me and Wu Lanlan into the palace, claiming to teach us manners. She has a shallow temperament, likely to torment you. Mother furrows her brow, somewhat annoyed. Why is there still no movement from the Emperor? Forget it, if the torment is too much, I'll go plead with the Empress. The Emperor and Empress have always been at odds, and unless it's a major issue, the Empress rarely intervenes, seeking her might be of no use. However, I don't mind, entering the palace might allow me to see Jiu. I haven't seen him for a long time. I and Wu Lanlan board the carriage to enter the palace. Mother's prediction is correct, Consort Ling indeed harbors ill intentions. In the palace hall, she flaunts her nails painted with orchid dye, smiling insincerely. You two, one from the countryside and one of dubious origin. I'm worried you won't serve the second prince well. So I've specially invited a nanny to teach you manners. From now on, you two come to me for a few hours every day, don't delay. When I returned to the residence, Mother had sent someone to teach me manners. Though not as good as Wu Lanlan, it was enough not to be picked on. Yet, after a few days, I clearly noticed Consort Ling targeting me intentionally. For instance, she once again threw a teacup at my feet, reprimanding coldly. Can't even serve tea properly? Didn't your mother know the rules best? Didn't she teach you even this? Water stains splashed onto my dress, leaving a mess. I was taken away to change clothes. Perhaps from standing too long, my mind was dizzy. Until I entered the side room, I finally sensed something was wrong. Outside the door came faint voices of conversation. Are you sure she drank it? Rest assured, Your Grace, I saw it with my own eyes. It was Wu Lon Lon and Consort Ling. A filthy woman dares to claim the position of the prince's concubine. Doesn't she see if she's worthy? So what if the Empress Dowager decided it? I hate people using the Empress Dowager to pressure me. And her mother, I hate her the most, always stirring up trouble under the Empress Dowager's favor, utterly hypocritical. Your Grace, will this cause trouble? What are you afraid of? The Empress Dowager is already dead, the Emperor's focus is entirely on the little prince now. A dead concubine won't matter. Consort Ling, she wants to kill me. I struggled to escape from the maid's grasp but had no strength at all. Beside my ear, Consort Ling's high-pitched sigh sounded. The Wu family's girl is truly formidable, I'm afraid I can't teach her. Forget it, send her back then. I couldn't catch my breath, and I fainted completely. When I woke up, I was in a carriage, my limbs weak and powerless. I struggled to lift the curtain, and it was the usual coachman. All around was desolate, and not far ahead was a cliff. Seeing me awake, he didn't stop. The carriage sped up even more, his face clearly showing a determination to die. Turns out, he had long been bribed. Seeing the cliff getting closer, a strong fear and unwillingness rose in my heart. I don't want to die, I haven't seen Jiyu yet, I can't die. As we reached the edge of the cliff, the horse neighed loudly, overturning the carriage. And I was uncontrollably falling into the abyss. At the critical moment, the wind roared, and a hand grabbed me. Opening my eyes, I saw Pei Wenhua holding me worriedly in his arms. Sure, wake up sure. The joy and fear of surviving almost overwhelmed me, I uncontrollably cried in his arms. Why did you come so late? He gently stroked my long hair with pity. It's my fault, I let you suffer. In my mind flashed Consort Ling's delicate face, I hatefully grabbed his collar, gritting my teeth. It's Consort Ling, she wants to kill me. He slightly furrowed his brow, his expression complex, I know. I didn't notice, trembling with anger. She insulted me time and again, and wants to kill me, Wenhua, you must avenge me. The air quieted down, leaving only the sound of the wind. After a long while, I sensed something was wrong, and then looked up at him. He took his hand off my black hair, sighing deeply. Sure, you've crossed the line. I froze completely, staring at him, my heart sinking bit by bit. This man, who once fought for justice even when I was cheated out of a few coins, never letting me suffer any grievance. Now, after I survived a near-death experience, he coldly tells me, you've crossed the line. Noticing my gaze, he awkwardly pursed his lips. I knew you were in trouble, so I dropped everything to come find you. Afraid of being too late and something happening, sure, you have to consider me too. The establishment of the crown prince is imminent, I can't act against Consort Ling now. Can you wait a bit? After all, she's the second prince's mother. It felt like falling into an ice cellar, completely cold. I thought I was different in his heart. After a pause, I spoke softly, what about Jiyu then? He was silent for a moment. I've thought about it for a long time, I naturally care for Jiyu. But the rumor of establishing the second prince as crown prince has already spread. If changed now, he might not have a way to survive. Sure, the second prince is also my flesh and blood, don't make it difficult for me, okay? I was sent to the Taoist temple by Pei Wenhua. Before leaving, he told me that once the storm passed, he would send someone to fetch me and welcome me into the palace. I spent 3 days in a daze. On the 4th day, the Empress came. She was dressed in night attire, holding a long sword, looking valiant and spirited. It was the first time I saw her so full of life, unlike her usual calm demeanor, like a living dead. I silently poured her a cup of hot tea. Your Highness, you have one. I have agreed to what you said. She looked pleased, leisurely sitting opposite me. It's good that you've come to terms. I told you long ago, His Majesty has affection for you, but it stops there. If you don't make plans for yourself and Jiyu, you will surely meet a tragic end. Do you think His Majesty truly doesn't know you were being humiliated in Consort Ling's palace those days? Do you know what His Majesty said? He said you were stubborn, and just because you couldn't be the principal wife, you left with your child. Learning some rules might help temper your character. Of course, he also had someone keep an eye out, ensuring you wouldn't suffer too much. which is why he discovered you were being harmed. These words were told to me by Eunuch Shu himself. I knew early on that Eunuch Shu was the Empress's person. I made a bet with the Empress, wagering how much I weighed in His Majesty's heart. She won, and I helped her plot against the Emperor. If I won, she would personally go before the Emperor and take her own life. Thus, this drama unfolded. Consort Ling was unaware that her actions were already seen by the Empress. We were merely playing along with the plan. That day, if His Majesty hadn't appeared, someone else would have come to save me. Unfortunately, I lost. I overestimated my and Shiyu's importance in his heart. He only thought that if Shiyu ascended, his second prince might die. Why didn't he consider whether Consort Ling would spare Shiyu and me if the second prince ascended? He said he would protect Shiyu, but I no longer believe him. I agreed to the Empress's request. In return, she would help support Shiyu to become the crown prince. That day, I realized how much she hated Pei Wenhua. It turns out, back then, to marry her and secure the throne, he secretly killed her fiancé. Every day in this cage, I think about how to make him pay for Ziki's life. Unfortunately, he is impervious to persuasion and uninterested in women. For so many years, he only has one son under his knee. And Consort Ling is incompetent, until I found you. Haha, heaven did not forsake me. He values you, yes, but sure, he values himself and his throne more. So, don't easily trust a man's sincerity. That night, she cried and laughed, tears streaming down her face. Afterward, I became much calmer. No longer wallowing in self-pity, dazed and confused. The Taoist temple is peaceful, with few visitors on regular days. Gradually, I also heard rumors from outside. They said the Wu family's girl couldn't stand Consort Ling's teachings and wanted to leave, but accidentally fell off a cliff during a trip, dying in a car crash. People sighed at her short life, then fell silent. Even the Marquis' residents, after lamenting the misfortune, continued to prepare for Wu Lanlan's wedding. The Empress acted swiftly. Not long after, news spread in the palace that the second prince was reprimanded by the Emperor for incompetence. However, this was just the beginning. Within a few days, it was revealed that the second prince colluded with local officials to embezzle disaster relief funds. For a while, the court was in an uproar. It was heard that the emperor was extremely angry. And in the imperial study, he directly threw a paperweight, injuring the second prince's forehead. The second prince's faction was in a panic, and even Consort Ling was affected. I didn't expect the power of the empress's maternal family, the Chui clan, to be so great. But then again, if they were an ordinary clan, the emperor wouldn't have gone to such lengths to marry into their family despite harming Empress beloved. Over the years, the emperor has been wary of the Chui clan and has already weakened their power considerably. The Empress told me that the Chui clan would fully support me and the third prince, Pei Xiyu. The condition is that Pei Xiyu should treat the Chui clan well when he ascends the throne. A few days later, news came from the palace that the birth mother of the third prince, Consort Qin, would be welcomed into the palace. Consort Qin is the title given to the third prince's birth mother, and also the title given to me by Pei Wenhua. Qin signifies nobility. I understood that Pei Wenhua's intention to establish a successor was wavering, and he began to focus his attention on Xiyu. On the day I entered the palace, the sunlight was just right. All the consorts of the harem and the noble women from the Marquis families were present. It was evident how much the emperor valued me. I wore a crown adorned with red gold and southern pearls shaped like sea buckthorn and paid my respects to him. It was my first time dressing so grandly, and Pei Wenhua was captivated. After a long while, he held my hand, choked up, and said, "It's good to have you back." The noble women were equally stunned. I had met them a few times during palace gatherings. Naturally, someone recognized me. "May I ask if Consort Qin is from the Marquis Wu family?" I smiled and nodded. Only then did everyone realize the truth. The emperor went to great lengths to clear my name from being the concubine of the second prince. Turns out the person the emperor met during his incognito visit was none other than Consort Qin, a true hidden gem. What a blessed union, congratulations. Only someone like Consort Qin could give birth to such a wise child like the third prince. Amidst the sighs and discussions, only my grandmother and Wu Lanlan turned pale. Equally pale was Consort Ling beside the empress. She looked as if she had seen a ghost, utterly shocked, and retreated in disbelief. The Empress amusingly pulled her back, causing her to jump in fright and almost fall. That night, Pei Wenhua stayed with me the whole night. The next morning, after court, I went to bring him food, and he was in a terrible mood. He threw the memorials on the ground, scattering them everywhere. His dark eyes were a deep red, glaring at me fiercely. Sure, do you also think I want to change the crown prince? I knelt down, humble yet firm, I dare not. He was startled, suddenly lost his strength, and waved his hand weakly. I'm not blaming you, don't take it to heart. I stood up, speaking softly, I understand. He looked at me for a while and smiled bitterly. Sure, you've changed. If it were before, you would have thrown a tantrum and argued with me. Even you have become distant. I knew I should smile and comfort him, but I was too exhausted. What he said was true, we could never go back to how things were. The Empress privately told me that the Emperor still couldn't make up his mind. Despite the desire inside and outside the palace for the second prince to fall. The second prince has committed many misdeeds over the years, relying on his status as the only prince. When the wall falls, everyone pushes, it's always been this way. As for the Marquis Wu, he's been sending messages requesting to see me. I only saw my mother, who told me that my father asked her to convey a message, saying that the whole Marquis family fully supports the third prince, willing to go through fire and water without hesitation. My father is a smart man. Choosing between the birth mother of a prince and an uncertain crown princess is an easy decision. To show his allegiance to me, he even confined Wu Lanlan. The second prince lost the people's support, while the third prince, despite his young age, showed exceptional talent. And the court gradually began to lean towards him. Meanwhile, Pei Wenhua's health was deteriorating. He would occasionally cough up blood. The imperial physicians diagnosed that he had injured his heart meridian during a previous injury among the commoners. The Empress and I exchanged a glance and silently lowered our heads. The medicine was administered during intimate moments, and ordinary people wouldn't notice. After thorough investigation, it was concluded as heart meridian weakness. The establishment of the crown prince was urgent. However, a catalyst was still needed. This catalyst appeared when the second prince, in an attempt to prove himself, personally led troops to fight pirates. He lost a leg and injured his reproductive organs. From then on, he could no longer have offspring. Consort Ling turned white overnight, almost crying her heart out. The emperor was deeply affected, coughed up blood, and fell into a coma. When he woke up, it was 2 days later. I laid the memorials on the desk and spoke softly, "Establish a successor, Your Majesty." He looked at me coldly, "Establish whom?" "Your Majesty jests. As the ruler of a nation, naturally, you can choose whomever you wish." He leaned on the desk, almost laughing with tears. Sure, how did we end up here? You, all of you are forcing me. I just want to treat everyone fairly, just want harmony among you. Why is it so difficult? Why must you make it hard for me? I said nothing, personally ground the ink, and handed the brush to his palm. He sighed deeply and held it tightly. He had grown thin, and his strength had waned considerably. After completing the last character, he threw the brush aside and closed his eyes. Sure, for the sake of our marriage, don't kill him. I won't hold you accountable for what you and the Empress did, nor for the medicine you gave me. I only ask you this one thing, spare his life. I was slightly stunned and agreed. After all, it's Pei Wenhua. Even if momentarily deceived, he would soon find out the truth. But this time, he found out too late. The next day, the emperor was supported as he personally attended court to announce the appointment of the third prince, Pei Jiyu, as crown prince. Prime Minister Cui, General Zheng, and others assisted the nation. His strength was lacking, and soon he grew tired, announcing the dismissal of the court. In the imperial study, he handed me a token, weakly saying, "This is my golden dragon guard, they only heed my orders. Keep it just in case. The Cui family must be guarded against. As for the Empress, she is good, it's I who wronged her. After I'm gone, let Consort Ling be buried with me, and let the Empress go her own way." After speaking, he struggled to clasp my palm. Sure, I never told you, those days with you among the common folk were the happiest of my life. I have no regrets. The strength in his palm gradually weakened, finally slipping away completely. With a cry, the emperor has passed away. Tears also slipped from the corners of my eyes. When the empress arrived, she was stunned for a long time. At first, she cried bitterly, then laughed amidst her tears. I had no choice but to send her back. She grabbed me forcefully, her nails turning white. He's dead, he's finally dead, I've finally avenged Siki, ha ha ha. I sighed and turned to leave. The second prince brought Wu Lanlan to keep vigil. Ever since the second prince became impotent, Consort Ling forced my father to marry her off to him. After asking my opinion, my father let it be. The wedding was simple, poor Wu Lanlan became a widow as soon as she entered the house. Seeing me, she looked like a frightened rabbit, hiding behind the second prince with red eyes. The second prince had injured a leg, walked with a limp, and watched me warily. I glanced at them but paid no attention. I promised Pei Wenhua to spare his life. Naturally, I wouldn't kill him. For someone like him, perhaps living is more painful than death. On the day of the burial, I escorted Consort Ling on her way. She looked at me in terror, retreating step by step. Are you human or ghost? Don't come near. I grabbed her wrist and twisted it forcefully. What do you think, Consort Ling? She tried to avoid me but was held down, only able to scream continuously. How could this happen? Someone like you isn't even fit to be a concubine for my son. How could you be Empress Dowager? How dare you? The Empress Dowager title is mine, I should be the Empress Dowager. Her words were incoherent, nearly insane. I released her, nodded slightly. Soon, 2 palace maids walked over with white silk. I didn't look back, turning to leave the room. 2 years later, Jiu had grown a lot, his appearance increasingly resembling that of the late emperor. He had already ascended the throne, acting with the maturity of an adult despite his young age. The Empress Dowager Cui Ting came to bid me farewell. For the past 2 years, she had been by my side, guiding me in governance, teaching me little by little. She was the legitimate daughter of the Cui family, naturally possessing insights beyond the ordinary. Now that the court is stable, and you have become more adept at handling matters, you can manage on your own, I won't accompany you anymore. I have always yearned for the freedom of the martial world, and it was there that I met Ziki. Now, I just want to return to that world and become a carefree heroine once more. Sure, you won't stop me, will you? She tilted her head and smiled at me. My eyes gradually became moist, and I turned away, nodding slightly. Her eyes also reddened, and tears silently fell. Over the years, we had supported each other through thick and thin, considering each other as family. 3 days later, Empress Dowager Cui passed away, and the ministers mourned. I did not attend. On the city tower, dressed in palace attire, I stood at the center, sending her off on her final journey. 1 person, 1 horse, 1 bag of belongings. Cui Ting turned back and waved at me vigorously. I waved back, responding with a smile. Cui Ting. The mountains are high and the waters long, may we meet again.